I will begin the show as I began yesterday. Boys and girls, this is a comedy show. It is often a show of outsized outrage. It is often a show of sarcasm. It is often a show of subversion. The only purpose in the show, and occasionally it's even intellectual, occasionally, though that's not the intent. The only reason the show exists is to entertain you and hopefully make you laugh, okay? Now, we can begin with a bunch of things. The tournament opened yesterday, and last night we were able to watch a few of the games. I should mention, but you've probably heard about this, it seems to be in the papers that Lance Armstrong and I have had somewhat of a to-do. Lance will be on the show from France in the second hour at 11 o'clock. So we'll see how that works out. My life lately is being played out in the pages of newspapers and in the ether of the internet, and I'm not as comfortable with it as you might think. But I'm making a list. Don't worry. I'm making a list. There will come a time to use the list.
This is the Tony Kornheiser Show.
The Tony Kornheiser Show.
These are the Beatles. This is All You Need Is Love. Properly chastened am I, and that's why we're playing this song. I'll make this introduction as brief as possible, but try to give you the fullness of it. I went on one of my rants the other day about bicyclists in Rock Creek Park and in new dedicated bicycle lanes in Washington, D.C., and got way over the top, and the bicycle people who heard it were properly offended, and then it worked its way all the way to the most famous cyclist in the history of the United States, the multiple Tour de France winner Lance Armstrong, who lit me up on Twitter, which many of you have read about, and through the good graces of Sally Jenkins, who has written books with Lance and who has been my dear friend for more years than either of us want to count. I said to Sally yesterday, do me a favor, need your help. Can you get me to talk to Lance? And yesterday while I was driving out here, Lance called all the way from France when he was done working out in preparation of the Tour de France, and we talked about a lot of things, and I certainly apologized for any inference that I made, which was not an inference, the direct thing about, going after bicyclists. And the first thing that we talked about is what seems to be a feeling on the part of cyclists, almost to a man or a woman, that motorists are particularly aggressive towards them. And Lance, you were saying, you went through this thing about so many things motorists will abide, but apparently not cyclists.
Can you hear me, Tony?
I can hear you fine, yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, yeah, well, first of all, let me just say that on behalf, obviously it goes without saying, for myself and all the people that get on bikes, we appreciate your apology, and I think we take that as a sincere apology. So many times, if it's you or me or anybody else out there that has this podium, whatever we say, a lot of times people, it might be funny. We may think it's funny. We may think it's a joke, but people actually take it seriously sometimes. And so to your point of this interaction and this relationship between people on bikes and people in cars, it meets a wall sometimes. And I think that obviously that's a relationship that has to coexist now and forever, because as I mentioned yesterday to you, we're both going to be around forever. Now, it's one that's going to require mutual respect. Cyclists can't go down the road 5 abreast through Rock Creek Park. I understand that. I go on rides all the time. People start lining up beside me wanting to chat, and I say, hey, we got to single up here. We got some cars back. But at the same time, it's also, there's no need for a car to come by and brush a cyclist, especially considering, obviously they're human beings on bikes, which makes it sort of a special case in my opinion. But not everybody's used to riding with cars. You get people, it could be a 40-year-old lady, it's her first bike ride, and she's out on the streets, and some guy comes and brushes her and taps her with a mirror. Trust me, she never gets on a bike ever again because she's so scared, and that's a shame. So, look, I know it's a volatile situation sometimes, but both sides have to understand each other, and we certainly don't need. And I think the other thing too that I should say, when this all blew up yesterday, was cycling lost a guy yesterday who was well regarded and loved by many people that got hit by a car and killed in the Carolinas. a guy by the name of Adam Little, and I think it just touched this nerve for a lot of people in the cycling community for both of those things to come out in the same day. And so, look, we got to all get along here, and it sometimes is heated.
Here's what I wonder about. You were saying to me that people will get behind a school bus. People will get behind a tractor, a hay tractor. People will get behind animals in cars and wait forever. But you sense an antagonism when they get around cyclists. And I guess I'm wondering, I mean, you drive a car as well as ride a bike. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I oftentimes, I've seen cars do all kinds of crazy things to avoid squirrels and cats and dogs and tractors and horses and sheep and runners and everything else. But I'm not nearly smart enough to be able to figure out why it is that a single cyclist or two cyclists or a group of cyclists even if they're two abreast or they're trying to stay out of the way, why that gets people so angry sometimes. But listen, it is what it is. I think that the cycling community can do a better job of creating awareness, and either through you and I sitting here having this interview, or through public service announcements, or through all of the advocacy groups that exist within cycling. We can get that message out there and say, look, this is good for all of us. This is good for our kids. Look at the stats, just to take it all the way down to our children, the things that we care about the most. 40 years ago, 40% of our kids rode their bikes to school, and the obesity rate was 14%. Today, you know how many kids ride their bike to school?
I say it's very small. Very small.
3% of our kids ride their bikes to school.
But part of that,
why?
Well, I think
because
that parents are
afraid to put their kids on the street.
Yes.
They're afraid they're going to ride a mile to school and get run over.
I think it also goes further. I think they're sort of afraid the bikes will be stolen. I think that there's just a fear factor. And I think, Lance, we'd probably agree that generationally, parents have become not just more protective, but overprotective because they're scared to death with all the horrible things they read about, right?
Agreed. But, the fact is I think that, and this whole discussion started because you started talking about bike lanes. And the fact that Pennsylvania Avenue is going to have these dedicated bike lanes. And, listen, you have certain cities and certain examples out there. You could look at Portland, Oregon. You could look at Lexington, Kentucky. You could look at Boston, Massachusetts. They will not build a mile of pavement for a car without a mile of bike lane.
Really?
And that really helps the entire situation because then you avoid this intersection or this conflict between the two. And, of course, that then becomes an issue of funding and resources and allocation of these funds, and so that's trickier too. But
you said something to me that I thought was fascinating. You said it couldn't happen, but you said if it was up to you, you'd build the bike lanes above where the cars are.
Well, for people to feel the safest. Again, let's go back to this lady who's 40 years old. She's got 3 kids. She said, you know what? I want to lose 10 pounds. She goes and buys a bike. She goes out for a bike ride. She get brushed by one car. She never does it again, trust me. Now, if she was in a bike lane that was a designated bike lane and it was either separate or elevated, so that car can't get anywhere near her, that would make her happier. That would make her feel safer, and she would continue to ride and achieve her fitness goals. But again, I don't have the magic wand and I don't have the money tree, so it's not possible to just snap your fingers and have bike lanes all over the place and have elevated bike lanes and things like that. That, again, is a process that we as cyclists and as a cycling community have to go through with the advocacy groups and make sure that when people are building roads or cities or states or communities or countries, that they think about the bike. They think about alternative means of transportation. If you think about it, look at, so many times people get in their car, they drive a mile. Why wouldn't you just get on your bike? That's actually that's good for all of us.
My daughter bicycles to work when she's out here in Delaware and she works.
Tony, what's the farthest you've ever ridden a bike?
Probably when I was a kid. Probably.
No, that doesn't count.
Oh, lately? No, I haven't been on a bike other than spinning classes. I haven't been on a bike in forever and ever and ever. I think I'd go right into a tree after about 5 feet.
I got serious money for the first person that comes up with the picture of Tony in a spin class.
Okay, but we can laugh about this. I'm not putting on the Cinzano outfit. I'm just going to wear jeans. That's okay.
That was
isn't it?
the other thing, like talking about, ragging on the outfits. Look at, and we talked about this yesterday, too. If you stood back and you looked at, God, we just finished the Olympics. You could look at Olympic sports. You could look at big-time professional sports. Everybody, when they get dressed up for the game, you got to admit, if you didn't know anything, it all looks a little goofy.
If I saw a guy in a Redskins uniform walking down Connecticut Avenue, I'd call the police to have him arrested. Just be too weird. By the way, your Twitter account is followed by millions, and as I told you yesterday in the car, the level of scrutiny that I'm getting is scary for me, and this is every day of your life. How do you live with this?
Well, and that's, I guess it's a blessing and a curse. That's where our society, from a media standpoint, has really changed, and nobody's safe from anything anymore. I get, we all get caught doing things, and if it's me or if it's you, and again, I'm gonna assume that you're truly sorry and you didn't mean that, and I think we as cyclists all have to give you that. But boy, these days you just can't get away with anything, and I don't even need to start naming examples. We all know those. Right. But the way that media has evolved and the way that social media has become so prevalent, man, everything is at our fingertips on your iPhone or on your BlackBerry or your laptop. You immediately can incite a reaction. And I got to tell you, this all started yesterday, not because I saw this and I said, well, this is bull. I'm going to say something about it. This started.
We're probably going to have to dump that particular word. But that's okay. But
this started because I was getting so much feedback from my followers that were saying, you've got to listen to this, you've got to do something about it. So then, as I told you yesterday, I said, look, I get asked all the time to react to certain things. I sat down and I listened to the interview, and you started, you sort of, was kind of joking around about the bike lane and about the clothes, and I thought, well, this isn't so bad. And then as I said to you yesterday, it just elevated, and then I thought, okay, this deserves a reaction. And so then, with a tap of a few fingers on the BlackBerry, you've got this thing going, and so that's what happens these days.
The power of that is overwhelming. And somebody my age, because I have to say this in a lot of ways, you're in France now. You're not around the corner, but metaphorically and realistically, you are around the corner all the time now, right? With the ability to electronically or however it works, communicate instantaneously.
Yeah, that's what we call it's just become a small world. You're never out of sight or out of mind or out of reach. And listen, this is in 2010. It's going to continue to evolve. God knows what's going to happen in 2020.
Yeah.
In 2020.
Can I ask you? Go ahead.
We will be watching people live on the internet. We'll be doing this in a couple of years. You'll be watching people live do the stupidest things you could imagine, including harassing and assaulting cyclists. But and that's that's going to hold people accountable. It's kind of scary, I got to admit, and we all get caught up in it as you're talking about. But it's not that part of it. I don't think is going to change.
All right, I'm going to ask one more question. Do you actually? I know you're a Texas boy. You actually drink that Ultra? You don't really drink the Ultra, right? You don't. Sally told me you don't really drink the Ultra.
It's right now. I'm in the middle of the season, so I'm trying to drink as much sparkling water as I can. But I got to tell you, I'm no stranger to cold beer. I will tell you that. And yes, the answer to your question is yes, I do drink it.
Okay, so someday the deal is that you and I will take a bike ride of probably no more than a mile, because I don't think at my age I could make more, and then we're going to have a beer. Is that fair?
It's absolutely fair. I'm going to continue to pay attention, as are the millions of people that you have now encouraged to watch you closely. They're going to all pay attention to make sure that we don't get singled out again. But absolutely, no. I listen, Tony. I think. We had a pleasant conversation yesterday. I heard it in your voice that you did not mean this. Obviously,
these rants are over. Believe me.
Yeah, this is a vindictive, cruel thing, and thank goodness. But you have listeners that listen to you and say, "Well, Tony said it's cool, so it must be cool." I have people that follow my career that that if I say jump, they say how high. And that's a little scary, but that's the reality of the world that we live in today. So we got to all just get along. We'll be on bikes. We'll move all the way as far to the right as we can, and the cars just give us a little space. You know what? You're going to still get home. You're going to still get to the red light at the same time. It's all good.
Thank you so much, Lance, and good luck with the tour.
Thank you, Tony.
Lance Armstrong, boys and girls.